Respect doesn't start when people see you. It doesn't begin with their words, their compliments, their applause. Respect starts when you see yourself clearly, when you decide you are worthy of being treated a certain way, and then you stop accepting anything beneath that standard. If you don't respect your time, why would they? If you don't value your presence, why should they? People learn how to treat you based on how you treat yourself. And if you're constantly explaining, apologizing, justifying, then you're handing out permission slips for disrespect. Every time you accept behavior that makes you feel small, you teach them that small is okay. And the longer you tolerate it, the more they believe it's normal. You want to be respected, then stop needing to be liked. Those are not the same. You don't earn respect by being agreeable. You earn it by being unshakable. Being respected means you've drawn a line. You've said, this is who I am, and this is where I stand. And you don't budge when the pressure comes. Respect isn't handed out. It's earned, and it starts internally. The way you speak to yourself when no one is listening. The way you honor your own word. The way you choose to walk away instead of explain yourself to someone who doesn't deserve access. Most people lose respect not because of what they do to others, but because of what they allow others to do to them. You keep showing up for people who would never do the same. You keep giving chances in the name of compassion. You keep tolerating behavior you'd never accept from someone new. That's not loyalty. That's self-neglect. You don't need to be harsh, but you need to be honest. If someone continually drains you, devalues you, or dismisses your presence, and you keep showing up, you're not being noble. You're being unavailable to your own worth. Start listening to your inner voice before anyone else's opinion, because the world will constantly tell you what you should be doing, how you should respond, how you should feel. But no one lives your life but you. No one wakes up with your responsibilities, your vision, your goals. So why are you giving strangers on the outside so much power over how you see yourself on the inside? The moment you start respecting your own voice, you stop needing to explain your silence. You stop needing to be chosen. You stop shrinking to fit someone else's comfort zone. Respecting yourself means choosing discipline over chaos. It means choosing solitude over fake connection. It means not responding to that text that disrespects your boundaries. It means not chasing after anyone who treated you like an option. When you make space for those people, you're telling yourself that your loneliness is more dangerous than your disrespect. And it's not. Being alone isn't the enemy. Losing your self-worth is. Because once you stop valuing yourself, you become a magnet for people who see you as disposable. And the longer you entertain them, the more you start to believe you deserve that treatment. When you walk into a room, your energy speaks before you do. People can feel if you carry yourself with certainty or insecurity. You don't need to announce your worth. It's felt. It's seen in your posture, your eye contact, your ability to say no without guilt. You don't need to be aggressive. You just need to be clear. The more comfortable you are in your presence, the more uncomfortable people become when they try to cross your lines. And they'll test it. They'll push to see how much you'll bend. Don't. The second you break your own standard to keep someone, you lose something bigger. Your self-trust. This is not about being cold or unapproachable. It's about being rooted. It's about knowing who you are so deeply that no situation, no rejection, no insult can shake it. When you build that kind of inner respect, your energy shifts. You no longer chase attention. You attract it. You no longer beg for opportunity. You command it. You're not moved by opinions because you've already decided who you are. That clarity is rare. That kind of self-respect is what separates people who lead from those who follow the noise. You build this self-respect in small ways. When you keep your word to yourself. When you show up even when no one claps. When you stop needing permission to say no. When you decide that your peace is more important than their approval. These moments might seem invisible to others, but they're everything. They're how you build the muscle of self-worth. And the more you strengthen it, the less you tolerate anything that threatens it. Stop giving people access to every part of you. Stop thinking openness means you have to put everything on display. The most powerful people aren't loud, they're unreadable. You don't have to perform your struggles to prove you're strong. You don't have to narrate your every move for others to validate your direction. Privacy isn't about hiding, it's about control. When people don't know your next step, they can't block it. When they don't know what rattles you, they can't use it against you. There is real power in restraint. Not everyone deserves to know your story. Not everyone earns the right to see behind your walls. You want respect? Then be a mystery. Be composed. Be intentional. Share only what is necessary and leave the rest for those who've proven they can be trusted with it. Oversharing is often a trap. It feels like connection, but it's really exposure. It feels like closeness, but it's often insecurity. When you're quick to spill your thoughts, your plans, your emotions to everyone, you leave nothing for yourself. You give people the playbook to your mind, and then wonder why they know how to push your buttons. Keep something for you, not because you're secretive, but because you're self-protective. You are not obligated to explain your silence. You are not required to justify your standards. You are not here to be understood by everyone. You are here to be respected, and respect grows in silence, in stillness, in being precise with your presence. Not everyone has earned your vulnerability. That's a privilege. And when you give that privilege away too quickly, you weaken your foundation. Your story deserves safe hands. Your emotions deserve steady ground. And if someone hasn't shown the consistency, the loyalty, the discipline to handle your truth, why are you handing it to them? People love information. Not because they care, but because they want leverage. They want insight. They want entertainment. The less people know, the more protected you become. And protection doesn't mean paranoia. It means clarity. It means filtering who gets to stand in your emotional space. You don't need to make loud declarations about your boundaries. Leave them. You don't need to announce your next move. Make it in silence and let your results speak. You don't need to be known to be powerful. You need to be solid, grounded, focused. The people who are most respected don't spend time convincing others. They let their energy do the talking. They walk with purpose. They move in silence. They're the ones who listen more than they speak. And when they speak, it lands. Because every word is intentional. It's not noise, it's command. That's how you hold power without having to beg for attention. The truth is, if people can read you like an open book, they can also rewrite your story without your permission. And they will. They'll twist your words. They'll use your vulnerability to undermine your strength. They'll take your transparency and turn it into ammunition. Then you're left wondering what went wrong. It's not that honesty was a mistake. It's that timing was. That discernment was. Not everyone who listens is a friend. Not everyone who asks about your pain wants to help you heal. Some just want a front row seat to your unraveling. Don't give them that. You are allowed to be silent. You are allowed to heal in private. You are allowed to grow behind closed doors. People respect what they can't predict. When you don't react the way they expect. When you don't fall apart when they push. When you hold your line without announcing it. That kind of mystery, that kind of internal discipline. It commands attention, not through force. Through presence. That's how you become someone people don't cross. Not because you're aggressive, but because you're untouchable. They don't know where your edges are, and that uncertainty creates distance. The kind of distance that protects your peace. The kind of distance that keeps your power intact. Be selective with your energy, with your truth, with your availability. Not as a game, but as a principle. There is strength in being quiet in a world that won't stop shouting. There is intelligence in being thoughtful in a culture obsessed with speed. There is power in being still when others are scrambling for attention. You don't need the world to know your next move to make it count. You don't need to defend your standards to keep them in place. You don't need to share every part of yourself to be authentic. Real authenticity doesn't require full access. It requires real intention. You teach people how to treat you not just by what you say, but by what you don't say, by what you withhold, by what you protect. You don't owe your history to someone who hasn't earned a place in your future. You don't owe your mind to anyone who only wants to unpack it for curiosity. Hold something sacred. Keep your power close. Let people wonder what you're thinking, how you stay so steady, why you don't chase, why you don't flinch. That's what respect is built on. Not overexposure. But composure. Respect is not built on how nice you are. It's not built on how many chances you give, how often you say yes, or how available you make yourself. Respect is built the moment you decide you're done negotiating your boundaries. The moment you stop bending for people who only show up when it's convenient. The moment you stop shrinking just to keep the peace. That's when people start to see you differently. Not because you've changed, but because you've stopped accepting the version of yourself that made everyone else comfortable. You don't need to scream for respect. You don't need to convince anyone to value you. All you need to do is enforce the standard. A boundary is not about pushing others away. It's about keeping your self-worth intact. And if someone walks away because of your boundary, let them. Because the ones who respect you will adjust. The ones who value you will rise to meet your standard. And the ones who don't, they'll reveal exactly why they were never meant to stay. Your line is not meant to be flexible every time someone gets uncomfortable. It's meant to be firm, unwavering, clear. That's what earns real respect. That's what shows you're not available for anything less than alignment. People don't test your boundaries because they misunderstand them. They test them to see if you'll enforce them. You can say, "I don't tolerate disrespect," 1,000 times, but if you tolerate it once, that's the message they believe. You can tell someone what your limits are, but if you keep breaking your own rules to keep them happy, they'll never take you seriously. Boundaries are not something you talk about, they're something you demonstrate. Quietly, consistently, and without apology. The more you allow, the more they assume it's allowed. So if you keep compromising, they'll keep pushing. But when you hold the line, when you stand firm even when it's uncomfortable, that's when people start shifting around you. There's nothing more powerful than someone who knows their limits and refuses to lower them, even when it costs them connection. Because anyone can hold a standard when it's easy. Anyone can say no when it's obvious. But few people can hold the line when it hurts. When you care about someone, when you want to be liked, when your heart wants to say yes but your self-respect demands a no. That moment is the test. That's when you learn what you truly value, being respected or being liked. Choose one, because you can't always have both. You'll lose people when you start enforcing boundaries. That's not a threat, it's a guarantee. But here's what most people don't realize. When you lose someone who leaves because you had standards, you didn't lose. You cleared space. You removed a person who only stayed as long as they had control. And the sooner they walk, the sooner you make room for people who show up with respect built in. Not something you have to beg for or earn. You don't need to adjust yourself for love. You don't need to dim your fire so someone else feels warm. You're allowed to expect emotional maturity. You're allowed to want effort. You're allowed to demand alignment, and if setting boundaries makes someone uncomfortable, that's not your problem to fix. You're not here to manage everyone's emotions. You're not here to babysit reactions. You're here to be whole. To protect your peace. To protect your vision. If someone's offended by your standard, they were benefiting from your lack of one. That's the truth most people avoid. Because standing firm might mean being alone. But being alone in peace is far better than being surrounded in chaos. Your worth is not measured by who stays when you lower yourself. It's measured by who honors you when you rise. Boundaries are a mirror. They reflect who's really in alignment with you. When you say, "I don't tolerate that," watch who shifts and who stays the same. Watch who respects the line and who tries to dance on it. The people who are meant for you won't test it. They'll thank you for it. Because boundaries also make others feel safe. They know where you stand. They know what you allow. There's no confusion, no blurred lines. Just clarity, and clarity is magnetic. Clarity earns respect faster than any explanation ever will. You don't need to argue to defend your limits. You don't need to give someone 3 warnings to finally walk away. One act of disrespect is enough. One refusal to honor your voice is enough. You don't need a list of receipts to justify your exit. When you know your worth, you don't make long speeches. You just leave. And that silence says more than any argument ever could. The moment you realize your peace is worth more than their comfort, your whole world shifts. You stop asking, "Will they stay if I say no?" And start asking, "Why would I stay if they don't honor my no?" You want to be respected. Be consistent. It's that simple and that difficult. People don't respect what they can't trust. They don't follow unpredictability. They follow people who are solid. People who say what they mean and do what they say. You can have talent, charm, intelligence, but if you don't have consistency, none of it matters. Because consistency builds character, and character builds respect. You don't earn that by showing up strong once in a while. You earn it by being reliable, stable, clear, not loud, not dramatic, just consistent. What you tolerate once becomes your baseline. If you let something slide today, don't be surprised when it shows up again tomorrow. Consistency is about training others, but more importantly, training yourself. You train yourself every time you honor your word. Every time you say you'll do something, and you actually do it. Every time you show up with the same energy, the same tone, the same principles, regardless of who's watching. That's what builds your identity. Not what you say when the spotlight is on, but how you act when no one's clapping, when no one's around to notice. Too many people change with the room. They shift based on who's present, who's listening, who they want to impress. That kind of behavior doesn't command respect. It creates confusion. If people never know who they're going to get when they talk to you, they won't trust you. They might like you. They might find you entertaining. But they won't respect you. Respect is built on repetition. It's built on alignment. When your actions match your words and your values show up in your behavior. Not once, not sometimes, but every single time. That's what makes people pay attention. Don't let your emotions run the show. It's easy to be strong when everything's going your way. But who are you when it's not? When you're tired, when you're triggered, when the pressure is on, that's where consistency really shows up. Because consistency is not about perfection. It's about discipline. You won't always feel like being calm. You won't always feel like saying the right thing. But if you've trained your standards, if you've conditioned your reactions, if you've held yourself to a higher level, then you won't default to chaos when life gets loud. You'll stay grounded. You'll stay sharp. You'll stay you. Your behavior tells people what to expect from you. And when you're consistent, people adjust. They start mirroring your energy. They speak with more care. They move with more respect, not because you asked for it, but because you modeled it. That's the difference between someone who demands respect and someone who earns it. One forces their voice. The other leads by example. You don't need to chase validation when your behavior speaks for itself. You don't need to say, "This is who I am," when your actions say it first. The reason people test your limits is because they've seen inconsistency in the past. They saw the version of you that tolerated what you said you wouldn't. They saw you bend after you said you'd walk. That's where doubt creeps in. That's when the line gets blurry. But when you clean that up, when you stop sending mixed signals, when your words match your actions over time, there's no room for confusion. People know what you stand for, and more importantly, they know what you won't stand for. You want to make an impact. Be the same person in every room. Speak with the same tone to a stranger that you do to someone with influence. Show up with the same energy when no one's applauding as when everyone is watching. That's what builds respect. When people know you're not acting, when they know you don't change depending on who's in the room, there's power in that kind of consistency. It makes people feel safe around you, safe to trust you, safe to follow your lead. And that safety, that trust, is what separates someone who's liked from someone who's respected. You don't owe the world a performance. You owe yourself integrity. And when you protect that, your consistency becomes non-negotiable. You stop explaining yourself. You stop justifying your choices. You don't need to, because your pattern already speaks. You've already shown who you are. You've already made it clear what you allow. The people who don't like it will call you rigid. The ones who get it will call you reliable. And the ones who truly respect you won't need an explanation. They'll feel it the moment you walk in. Consistency is a quiet power. It's not flashy. It's not trendy. It's not exciting. But it's what builds legacy. It's what makes people trust your name when you're not in the room. It's what makes people speak your name with respect long after you've left the conversation. You don't need to do everything right. You just need to do the right things repeatedly. Control your reactions, or someone else will control you. That's not a suggestion. It's a hard truth. People watch you closely, not just to understand you, but to test you, to measure how much power they have over you. The moment someone learns they can get a rise out of you, they start using that as leverage. They poke, they prod, they provoke, and they wait for your response. And when you give it to them, when you explode, break down, raise your voice, lose your cool, that's when you hand over your power. Not because they earned it, but because you gave it away for free. The most respected people aren't the ones who win arguments. They're the ones who don't engage in battles that don't serve them. They don't flinch when insulted. They don't swing back when someone's trying to bait them. That's not weakness. That's dominance. That's discipline. That's knowing exactly who you are and refusing to let someone else write your emotional script. People respect that kind of stillness. That kind of control, it makes them think twice before crossing a line. Because once they know they can't move you, they stop trying to manipulate you. Most people are reactors. They're trained by emotion, not by awareness. They hear something disrespectful and immediately clap back. They feel anger and throw it like a grenade. They're triggered by tone, by silence, by someone's glance, and instead of choosing their response, they become it. That kind of behavior doesn't command respect. It signals vulnerability. Because if your emotions are easy to provoke, your power is easy to steal. And people don't respect what's unstable. They exploit it. So if you want to shift how people treat you, shift how you respond to pressure. You can't control what they say, but you can control whether it lands. This isn't about being passive. It's about being strategic. You can still hold your boundaries without raising your voice. You can still stand your ground without broadcasting your rage. Strength isn't volume, it's restraint. It's the ability to be fully aware of what's happening and still decide how you want to move. It's choosing not to react even when everything in you wants to. Because that pause between trigger and response, that's your power. That's your leadership. That's where you decide what kind of person you are, not just what kind of mood you're in. It's easy to say, don't react. But how do you build that muscle? You start by tracking your patterns. Where do you usually lose control? Who pushes your buttons the most? What kind of situations make your chest tighten, your jaw clench, your temper rise? Don't avoid those moments, study them. They are your greatest teachers. They're showing you exactly where you need to grow, exactly what still owns you emotionally. And until you confront that, you'll keep reacting from the same wounded place. But once you start observing instead of performing, everything shifts. You stop feeding the fire and start controlling the flame. Control isn't suppression. It's intention. It's not pretending you don't feel anything. It's knowing how to use it. When you react out of impulse, you let emotion drive the car. But when you respond with clarity, you're the one holding the wheel. And every time you practice that, every time you choose to respond with presence instead of emotion, you reinforce your identity. You become someone others can't rattle, someone they can't read, someone they can't manipulate. And that unreadability, that steadiness, earns more respect than any performance ever could. You don't have to prove a point to be powerful. You don't have to respond to every insult to protect your name. Your silence says more than your defense ever will. When you learn to sit in discomfort, to process your emotions before speaking, to walk away without reaction, that's not avoidance. That's emotional intelligence. And it's one of the rarest traits people carry. Because most people want instant gratification. They want to win the argument, clap back fast, post their pain, defend their pride. That's not control. That's chaos, and chaos never earns long-term respect. Control does. Composure does. Intentional stillness does. It's not about pretending to be emotionless. You are human. You will feel things deeply. But maturity is measured in what you do with that emotion. If you let every slight pull you into war, you'll spend your life fighting battles that lead nowhere. But if you can rise above provocation, if you can walk away without needing to prove your strength, you'll become untouchable. Because there's nothing more powerful than a person who doesn't need to react to be respected. That's the difference between presence and performance. One lasts. The other fades. You want real influence. Learn how to master your environment. Stop walking into rooms wondering how people feel about you, and start asking how you want to move through the space. Respect isn't about being the loudest voice or dominating the room. It's about commanding presence without having to raise your volume. It's about knowing how to read the energy, observe the undercurrent, and still move with clarity. People who are respected don't need to say, "I'm in control." You feel it? It's in how they sit, how they listen, how they respond, not react. That kind of presence doesn't come from being forceful. It comes from being aware. Awareness is your weapon. Most people miss everything because they're too busy trying to be seen. They walk into a room needing attention, and because of that they lose power. Real strength is in silence, in observation. It's in watching people before speaking. It's in noticing tone, posture, micro expressions. It's the quiet studying of behavior that gives you insight others miss. When you understand the dynamic of a space, you don't have to push to influence it. You adjust. You adapt. You decide who gets your attention and who doesn't. You take in everything, but you reveal nothing. That's control. Control doesn't mean you suppress who you are. It means you don't give your power away in pieces just because someone made you feel uncomfortable. You don't step out of character to match someone else's chaos. You don't shift your identity depending on who's present. That's not influence, that's insecurity. Influence means knowing who you are before you walk in, so you're not thrown off when the energy isn't warm. You don't need everyone to like you. You don't need to be the favorite. You just need to be respected. And respect is built by consistency in unfamiliar terrain. It's the ability to stay composed no matter what room you're in. People are always watching, even when you think they're not. They watch how you treat people with no status. They watch how you handle being interrupted. They watch how you respond when things don't go your way. And in those micro moments, they decide if you're someone they can follow, someone they can trust, someone they should respect. That's where your influence is tested. Not when you're prepared, but when you're under pressure. And if you know how to hold yourself when it's uncomfortable. If you know how to keep your energy steady, even when the atmosphere is tense, that's when people lean in. Mastering your environment means mastering yourself first. It's knowing your own tells. The way your voice shifts when you're nervous. The way your shoulders rise when you feel threatened. The urge to over-explain, to fill the silence, to prove yourself when you feel underestimated. You've got to catch those things before anyone else does. Because the person who's in control of themselves will always be the most powerful person in the room. When you know your triggers, when you recognize your patterns, when you choose your tone intentionally, that's when you become unshakable. Not because you're invincible, but because you're self-aware. You don't have to control other people to control the room. All you have to do is set the tone. And that tone starts with how you show up. Not how expensive your clothes are, not how perfectly you speak, but how grounded you are in your presence. Are you scattered or still? Are you reactive or deliberate? Are you chasing energy or commanding it? Every room responds to the most grounded energy in it. And if you want that to be you, then stop focusing on what you can't control and double down on what you can. Your body language, your breath, your timing, your restraint. Respect comes when people can feel your discipline without you having to say a word. You walk in and people adjust. Not because you intimidate, but because you carry clarity. You don't gossip. You don't fidget. You don't seek approval. That's rare. That's powerful. That's what earns attention from the right people. And the ones who are threatened by that kind of presence, let them be. You don't lower your standard just because someone else feels small in your confidence. You don't shrink to make others feel secure. You own the space you take up, quietly, firmly, completely. When you know how to master a space, you stop overcompensating. You don't have to dominate conversations to prove you're worthy of being in them. You speak when you have something to say. You listen to understand, not to respond. You hold pauses. You let silence do the heavy lifting. People remember that. Because the world is noisy, and the person who can stay calm, who can stay clear, who can stay in control, that person commands a level of respect that can't be faked. That's not performance. That's presence.